The Lotus Sutra Ch.4, Willing Acceptance. At that time, the noble Subhuti, Mahakatyayana, Mahakasyapa, and Mahamudgalayana, having heard the unprecedented teaching from the Buddha and the Bhagavat's prediction of Sariputra's highest complete enlightenment, were filled with wonder and ecstatic joy. They immediately rose from their seats, straightened their garments, leaving their right shoulders bared, and touched their right knees to the ground. With rapt attention and with palms pressed together, they bowed in veneration and, gazing at the Bhagavat's face, said to the Buddha, quote, "We are the seniors of the Sangha, old and feeble. We considered ourselves to have attained nirvana, and to be incapable of further seeking highest complete enlightenment, so we did not do so. It has been a long time since the Bhagavat taught the Dharma in the past. Now we sit with weary bodies and only contemplate emptiness, signlessness, and wishlessness. Neither the Bodhisattva teaching, nor the carefree sporting with transcendent powers, nor the pure Buddha worlds, nor helping sentient beings attain enlightenment produced any eager desire in us. Why is this? Because the Bhagavat caused us to leave the triple world and to attain nirvana. But now we are old and feeble. We did not take even a single thought of pleasure in the Buddha's inspiration of the Bodhisattvas to highest complete enlightenment. And now, in the presence of the Buddha, we have heard the Shravakas receive their prediction of highest complete enlightenment, and we are very joyful to have obtained such an unprecedented experience. We never considered that we would suddenly be able to hear this marvelous teaching, and we are overjoyed that we have attained such great benefits, an immeasurable treasure which we have attained, though unsought and unawaited. O Bhagavat, we now wish to give an illustration to clarify what we mean. Suppose there were a man who, when he was still a child, left his father and ran away. Living in another region for a long time, he passed the age of 10, 20, even 50 years. The older he got, the more impoverished he became. He went searching everywhere for food and clothing, and while he was wandering about, he started back by chance in the direction of his native country. From the first, the father had looked for his son, but in vain. In the meantime, he had stayed in the city and became extremely wealthy, and now possessed uncountable treasures. The father's storehouses were all filled to overflowing with gold, silver, lapis lazuli, coral, amber, crystal, and other such things. He had many servants, subordinates, and clerks, as well as innumerable elephants, horses, carriages, cows, and sheep. He profited through lending, and his trade with other countries was also great. Then the impoverished son, after wandering through many villages, from one country and city to another, finally reached the city where his father lived. Although the father had constantly thought about the son from whom he had been separated for over 50 years, he nevertheless had spoken to no one about it. He brooded and grieved in his heart, thinking to himself, quote, "I have become old and feeble, and although I have many treasures and storehouses filled with gold, silver, and precious jewels, I have no son. When I die, my treasures will be scattered and lost for lack of someone to whom to entrust them." Close quote. It was for this reason that he was always thinking anxiously about his son. He also thought, quote, "If I could get my son back and leave my fortune to him, I would be relieved and happy and without further worry." Close quote. O Bhagavat, at that time the impoverished son who had been wandering about, taking odd jobs, by chance finally reached his father's house. Standing at the side of the gate, he saw his father in the distance, sitting on the lion's seat with his feet propped up on a jeweled stool, respectfully surrounded by many Brahmins, Kshatriyas, and householders. His body was adorned with pearl necklaces worth thousands of myriads. He was attended on both sides by clerks and servants holding whisker fans. Above was a jeweled canopy with various hanging flowered banners. Perfume was sprinkled on the ground, which was strewn with a variety of beautiful flowers. There were rows of precious objects, and people were coming and going, buying and selling. With various trappings such as these, the father appeared very majestic indeed. The impoverished son, seeing his father wielding such great power, became terrified and regretted that he had ever come to that place. He thought to himself, quote, "He must be a king or of similar rank. This is not a place where I can obtain things as a hired worker. It would certainly be better for me to go to a poor village, a place where I can use my ability and easily obtain clothing and food. If I stay here for very long, I will be seized and put to forced labor." Close quote. Thinking this way, he quickly fled. At that time, the wealthy man, sitting on the lion's seat, realized that he had seen his son and became extremely happy. He then thought, quote, "Now there is someone to whom I can leave my fortune and treasures. I have been constantly thinking about my son, but had no way to meet him, and now, suddenly, he has come. This is exactly what I wanted. Although I am old, I still yearn for him." Close quote. The man immediately dispatched his attendants to chase his son and bring him back. Then the attendants quickly ran and overtook him. The impoverished son was frightened and cried out in fear, "I did nothing wrong. Why are you seizing me?" The attendants grabbed him more firmly and forced him to return. Then the impoverished son thought, quote, "They have seized me even though I have done nothing wrong. I shall certainly be killed." He was so terrified that he collapsed unconscious on the ground. His father, seeing this from a distance, told the attendants, "I don't need him. Don't force him to come. Pour cold water on his face and bring him to consciousness. Don't say anything more to him." What was the reason for this? The father knew that his son was of lowly aspiration, and that his own wealth and position would cause him problems. Although the father knew without doubt that the man was his son, he used skillful means and did not say to others, "This is my son." The attendant then said to the son, "You are free to go wherever you wish." Then the impoverished son, happy because he had never felt such relief, stood up and went to a poor village to seek for food and clothing. At that time, wanting to get his son back, the wealthy man employed skillful means and secretly dispatched 2 attendants of wretched and humble appearance. He said to them, quote, "Approach the impoverished fellow and gently tell him that there is a place for him to work where he will be paid double. If he gives his assent, then bring him back to work. If he asks you what kind of work there is for him to do, tell him that he will be employed to sweep dung and that both of you will work with him." Then the 2 attendants immediately went in search of the impoverished son. When they found him, they told him this. At that time, he took his pay and immediately went to work sweeping dung. The father, seeing his son, felt pity and wondered what to do. Then one day, while looking through the window, he saw his son in the distance, appearing emaciated and wretched, soiled with dung and dirt. The father took off his necklaces, fine garments, and ornaments, and put on torn, filthy clothes. Covering himself with dirt and taking a dung sweeper in his right hand, he made himself look fearsome. he said to his workers, "Work hard and don't be lazy." Through this kind of skillful means, he was able to approach his son. He spoke to him further, saying, quote, I want you to always work here. Don't go anywhere else, and I will pay you more. There will be no difficulty in getting the things you need, like utensils, rice, noodles, salt, and vinegar. I also have an old servant. If you need him, I'll give him to you. Be at ease. I am just like your father, so don't worry about anything. Why am I doing this? Because I am old and you are still young. Whenever you work, you are never lazy or sullen, and never complain. I never see in you the bad qualities the other workers have. From now on, you will be just like my own son. Then the wealthy man immediately addressed him as his child. At that time, even though the impoverished son rejoiced at being treated this way, he nevertheless still considered himself a humble employee. For this reason, his father let him continue to sweep dung for 20 years. At the end of this period of time, each had come to trust the other. Yet, even though the son had free access to his father's house, he still lived in the same place as before. O Bhagavat, one day the wealthy man became ill and knew he was going to die before long. He said to the impoverished son, quote, This is what I have been thinking, and I want you to understand my intentions. I now have plenty of gold, silver, and precious treasures filling my storehouses. Get to know exactly how much is being taken in and out of them. Why do I want you to do this? Because you and I are one and the same. Take good care of our fortune and don't let it be lost. Then the impoverished son obeyed his instructions. Although he learned everything about the gold, silver, precious treasure in the storehouses, he never wanted to take even the least amount. Nevertheless, he still lived in the same place as before and was still not able to get rid of his feeling of inferiority. After a short time had passed, the father knew that his son's mind had become composed, that his will had increased, and that he was ashamed of his former feelings. When the father was just on the verge of death, he ordered his son to meet the king, ministers, kshatriyas, householders, and relatives who had already assembled there. The father then declared, quote, This is my son, my own progeny. When we were in a certain city, he left me and fled. He wandered around for more than 50 years, undergoing hardships. His original name is such and such, and my name is such and such. Long ago, when I was in that city, I worried and searched for him. At last, and unexpectedly, I met up with him. This is my true son, and I am, in truth, his father. All of the fortune I now possess belongs to my son. He already knows about our finances. O Bhagavat, at that time, the impoverished son, hearing what his father said, became extremely happy at having obtained such an unprecedented experience. Then he thought, quote, I never even considered receiving this. Nevertheless, this treasure house has come into my possession, though unsought and unawaited. O Bhagavat, this very wealthy man is the Tathagata, and all of us are the heirs of the Buddha. The Tathagata has always said that we are his children. Because of the triple sufferings, O Bhagavat, we experienced pain, were confused, ignorant, and attached to inferior teachings in life after life. Today, the Bhagavat has made us think about getting rid of the dung of fallacies regarding the reality of the world, and that, in this respect, we diligently strove to attain the nirvana only as one seeking a salary for a single day's labor. We had already attained it and were extremely happy and satisfied with it. We said to ourselves, quote, Because we have made diligent efforts to comprehend the Buddha's teaching, we have attained a great deal." Close quote. But the Bhagavat had formerly perceived that we were attached to desires and content with lowly aspirations. While letting us be so, he did not explain that we were to have a portion of the treasure house of the Tathagata's wisdom and insight. Through the power of skillful means, the Bhagavat has taught the wisdom of the Tathagatas. Although we had attained nirvana from the Buddha as our salary for one day's labor, we thought we had attained much and did not seek the Mahayana. Furthermore, we have manifested and explained the wisdom of the Tathagata for the Bodhisattvas, but we ourselves had no aspirations regarding it. Why is this? The Buddha, knowing that we were content with lowly aspirations, taught us according to what is appropriate through the power of skillful means. But we did not know that we really were the heirs of the Buddha. Now we fully know that the Bhagavat is unstinting in regard to the wisdom of the Buddhas. What is the reason for this? We have actually been the heirs of the Buddha from long ago, even though we only yearned for the inferior teaching. If we had yearned for the superior teaching, then the Buddha would have taught the teachings of the Mahayana to us. Yet, in this sutra, he has taught only the single vehicle. Now, in the past, the Buddha reviled the Sravakas, those who yearned for the inferior teaching, in the presence of the Bodhisattvas. But actually, the Buddha inspired them also with the Mahayana. That is why we say that though we originally had no desire to seek the great treasure of the King of the Dharma, it has now come to us unsought and unawaited. We have all attained what we should attain as the heirs of the Buddha. Thereupon, Mahakasyapa, wanting to elaborate on the meaning of this further, spoke these verses. Today we have heard the Buddha's words, and we are joyful and ecstatic at having attained such an unprecedented experience. The Buddha has said that the Sravakas will be able to become Buddhas. The most magnificent jewels have been obtained without being sought or awaited. Suppose there were a young and inexperienced child who left his father and ran away to a distant country. He wandered around for more than 50 years, and his worried father looked for him everywhere. The father, exhausted from searching for him, remained in a city where he had a house built and enjoyed the desires of the 5 senses. His family built up a vast wealth of much gold, silver, mother of pearl, agate, pearls, lapis lazuli, elephants, horses, cows, sheep, floats, carriages, peasants, servants, and other employees. He earned interest through loans and deposits and had buyers and sellers throughout all the other regions. He was surrounded by thousands of myriads of kotis of people who held him in awe, always loved by the king and deeply respected by the subjects and powerful families. There were many people coming and going on different business. He was thus extremely wealthy and very powerful. And yet, as he grew older, he increasingly worried about his son. Day and night he thought, quote, "Soon I will die. My foolish son has abandoned me for over 50 years. What should I do with the various goods in my treasure houses?" At that time, the impoverished son was going from town to town, from one country to another, seeking food and clothing. Sometimes he obtained them, and sometimes he did not. He was emaciated from hunger, and his body was covered with scabies. Through his wanderings, he gradually reached the city where his father lived, and, after having been employed at one place after another, finally ended up at his father's home. At that time, the wealthy man was sitting within the gate on a lion's seat, sheltered by a huge jewel-covered canopy. He was surrounded by his attendants and guarded by his men. Some were counting gold, silver, and jewels, and some were settling the finances, while others were keeping the accounts. The impoverished son saw his father, who was extremely wealthy and dignified. He wondered if this man were a king, or someone of equal rank. He became intimidated and wondered why he had gone there. He thought to himself, "If I stay here for long, I will be harassed and coerced into working." Thinking this, he ran away in search of a poor village where he could find employment. At that time, the wealthy man, who was sitting on the lion's seat, saw his son in the distance. Though he recognized him, he told no one, but sent his attendants to pursue him and bring him back. The impoverished son was terrified, cried out, and collapsed on the ground in confusion, thinking, quote, "Since this man has seized me, I shall certainly be killed. In vain did I come here in search of food and clothing." The wealthy man knew that his son's thoughts were humble and foolish, and that he would not believe what he said, nor believe that he was his father. Then, using skillful means, he dispatched other men with squint eyes, of small stature and little dignity, saying to them, quote, "Tell him we will employ you to sweep dung at double your wages." When he heard this, the impoverished son was overjoyed and returned to sweep dung and clean houses. The wealthy man constantly watched his son through the window and thought that his son was foolish and willingly did menial things. Then the wealthy man put on torn and filthy clothes and, holding a dung sweeper, went out to his son. He approached his son through this skillful means and said to him, quote, "Work hard. I have already increased your wages and given you more balm for your feet, given you sufficient food and warm, thick mats." He further advised him, saying sternly, "You should work diligently." Then he gently added, "I will treat you like my son." The wealthy man, being wise, gradually gave him freedom of the house, and, after 20 years had passed, let him become involved in the family business. He showed him the gold, silver, pearls, and crystal, and made him learn about all aspects of the finances. Yet the impoverished son still lived in a thatched hut outside the gate, and considered himself poor, thinking that these things were not his own. The father knew that his son was gradually becoming more noble, and, wanting to give him his fortune, he assembled the king, ministers, kshatriyas, householders, and relatives. He informed this great assembly, saying, quote, "This is my son. He left me and stayed away for 50 years. 20 years have already passed since I saw my son return here. Long ago, I lost my son in a certain city, and, after wandering around in search of him, I ended up staying here. I entrust to him all the houses and men that I possess. They are all at his disposal." The son thought, "Long ago I was poor and of lowly aspiration. Now at my father's place I have obtained an immense fortune of such things as precious jewels and houses. I am overjoyed at having obtained such an unprecedented experience." The Buddha is also like this. He knew that we yearned for the inferior teaching, so he never taught us that we should become Buddhas. Yet he did tell us that we had attained the stage of non-corruption, that we had achieved the inferior vehicle, and that we were the disciples of the Sravaka vehicle. The Buddha told us to teach that those who practiced the highest path would be able to become Buddhas. Accepting the Buddha's teaching, we explained the highest path for the great bodhisattvas, using various explanations and illustrations and many figures of speech. The heirs of the Buddha heard the teachings from us, contemplated day and night, and practiced diligently. The Buddhas instantly made their predictions, saying, quote, "You will all be able to become Buddhas in the future." We have explained the essence of the treasured teaching of the Buddhas only for the sake of the Bodhisattvas, but did not expound it for ourselves. Just as the impoverished son, who, after approaching his father, learned of various things, yet did not want them, so, although we explained the treasure house of the teaching of the Buddhas, we never aspired to it. We thought that we ourselves had attained nirvana, and considered this enough. We understood only this, and did not think there was anything else. Even if we heard about the pure Buddha lands, and leading and inspiring sentient beings, we never rejoiced in it. Why is this? Because although we thought thus, quote, "Every existence is quiescent, neither produced nor extinguished, neither large nor small, incorrupted and unconditioned," close quote, we felt no eagerness. For days and nights we neither craved for nor were attached to the wisdom of the Buddhas, neither did we aspire to it. Furthermore, we ourselves thought, with regard to the Dharma itself, that this was the ultimate goal. After practicing the teaching of emptiness day and night, we were able to shake off the suffering of the triple world, and, bearing our last bodies, abided in the nirvana with residue. We were led and inspired by the Buddhas, so that our attainment of the path was not in vain, and we have already been able to pass on the benefits we received from the Buddha. Although we have expounded the teaching of the Bodhisattvas to the heirs of the Buddha to seek the Buddha path, we never longed for this teaching. Because he knew our minds, the leader turned away from us. At first he did not arouse our zeal with the explanation that there exists real profit in the teaching. Just as the wealthy man, who, knowing that his son was of lowly aspiration, broadened his son's mind using the power of skillful means, and only then entrusted his entire fortune to him, the Buddha is also exactly like this. He has manifested marvelous things, but perceiving that we were content with lowly aspirations, he brought control to our minds using the power of skillful means, and only then taught us the great wisdom. Thus, today, we have obtained an unprecedented experience. The fact that we have now spontaneously obtained what we had not longed for is just like the impoverished son who obtained innumerable jewels. O Bhagavat, we have now obtained the path and its fruit, and have obtained pure sight into the incorruptible Dharma. For a long while we have maintained the pure conduct of the Buddha. Today, for the first time, we have obtained the results. For a long time we have practiced the pure path of discipline and integrity based on the teaching of the Dharma King. And now we have attained the supreme fruit of non-corruption. We are now real Shravakas and cause everyone to hear the words, quote, Buddha path. We are now real Arhats and shall be revered among the Devas, humans, Maras, and Brahmas in all the worlds. The Bhagavat, the great benefactor, benefits us with marvelous things by his inspiration and compassion. Who can repay him for it, even in immeasurable kotis of kalpas? Even if one were to serve him with one's hands and feet, bow one's head in reverence, and give all kinds of offerings, one could not repay him. Even if one were to bear him on one's head and shoulders out of deep respect for as many kalpas as there are sands in the Ganges River, one could not repay him. Or even if one were to honor him with delicious food, uncountable jeweled garments, beddings, various medicines, famed sandalwood from Mount Oxhead, and various precious jewels, or by building temples, spreading jeweled clothing and other such things, for as many kalpas as there are sands in the Ganges River, one could not repay him. The Buddhas have marvelous, immeasurable, limitless, inconceivable, great transcendent powers. They are the kings of the Dharma. Without depravities and unconditioned, they are patient in all matters for the sake of the humble ones. They teach the common people who are attached to tangible things according to what is appropriate to them. All of the Buddhas, having attained complete mastery over the Dharma, perceive the various desires and intentions of sentient beings and explain the teachings with innumerable illustrations according to what is appropriate to them. Judging from the roots of good merit that sentient beings have planted in former lives, the Buddhas perceive who are mature and who are not. Considering this in various ways and understanding the distinctions completely, the Buddhas teach the single path, explaining it as three in accordance with what is appropriate.